Well, Nigel Farage, the former head of the UK Independence Party, the fastest growing party in the UK, member of the European Parliament. He ran for the UK Parliament and barely lost against the speaker position. And on the day of the election, his aircraft tipped end over end, nearly killing him and the pilot. And we were just talking during the break. This is his first interview. And he'd also, just coinciding, his book is now published. It's now available at Amazon.com. It's Fighting Bull. The Fighting Toro, Nigel Farage, Fighting Bull. And it's him with a bullhorn on the front with the British flag, Union Jack, I guess, as an umbrella over his shoulder. Nigel Farage, Farage spelled F-A-R-A-G-E, Fighting Bull. Great name. And how he's taking on the globalists, the unelected Eurocrats that now make 70+% of the laws in the UK. Our fight against the New World Order is ongoing. Mr. Farage, it is great to have you here, sir. You've got 9 lives.
Just amazing. Anybody listening to this that sees the pictures of the crash, which I'm sure you can get and put up on your site, and these incredible photographs of me lying in the wreckage of this light aircraft crash, and you'd have thought for all the world I'd be dead. And whilst I've been badly injured, it really has been the most miraculous escape. It really has.
Folks are wondering, I mean, I know you've got a stiff upper lip and don't want to talk about yourself, but, the pilot, how he's doing and what your injuries were.
Well, the pilot was a former Royal Air Force trained pilot, so, no cowboy. I mean, a proper chap. It was a genuine accident. In life, accidents happen. You can't insulate yourself against this. When you have an impact injury, such as we had, lots of unpleasant things happen. Justin, the pilot, had lacerations and cuts and broken bones, and he's also got some bad skin problems. He's going to need skin grafts and whatever. And I finished up with 10 broken bones in my upper body. So sternum broken, fractures to the spine, mercifully not huge ones, and virtually every rib front and back broken, plus a punctured lung. So, a pretty comprehensive list of injuries. Facially, a few cuts on the face, but nothing too awful. But mercifully, no real head injuries. So if those awful, ghastly Eurocrats that want to take over my country and destroy our democracy think they've got rid of me, they've got another thing coming, because it may take me a few months to get better, but I'm going to be back fighting them. Absolutely, and I was saying, you're such a champion of liberty, if we have to, we'll just stick you in a Darth Vader iron lung and roll you out against the enemy. I'm going to be back, and one of the really interesting things, I mean, since I had this accident, is the one great prediction that I've had over the years was that this attempt to take countries like Greece and Germany and to force them together in a single monetary union. I've been saying for over 10 years that it wouldn't work. And whilst I've been laid up in hospital and back here at home recovering, of course, we're now seeing the collapse of that monetary system. We're seeing riots on the street in Greece. We've seen people die. And by the way, to interrupt, and I'm going to give you the floor, sir, in the time we have, you giving speeches 2 years ago predicted all of this. You, just a few months ago, excoriated Herman von Rompuy, the unelected dictator, openly calling for world government. And now their arrogance has evaporated. The London Guardian reported that the Bilderberg Group has said that they're afraid of protesters and afraid of me by name. So they're just horrified that the public is now identifying them. So how did you predict all this, A, and then B, go into the state of Europe right now? Well, before I was in politics, I had a job in the real world. For 20 years, I worked on the foreign exchange and commodity market, so I have some idea of how the global economy actually works, and it really exists, Alex, because things are different. Things are different. Individual countries have their own currency, they have their own interest rates, and they're able to adapt and adjust to changing global markets and changing conditions. When you try and pretend, as part of your attempt at firstly European government, but leading on to global government, that actually we're all the same, and that we can all come under the same umbrella. All of my experience told me that it couldn't work. Everything told me that the German economy was a different economy to the Greek economy, and that those guys joining together in a monetary union 10 years ago couldn't work. So I've been predicting disaster consistently over the course of the last 10 years, and now it really is happening. And if ever there was an example of why bureaucratic control, of why people who've got their dreams and their plans, just like the communists, of course, let's not forget, because they operated on exactly the same basis, if ever there was an example of why this is mad, bad, dangerous, and will lead to civil war, you're seeing it in Europe right now.
Yeah, a bunch of unelected bureaucrats. For those that don't know, they're exempt from their own EU taxes. Briefly explain, I mean, as if you're talking to 6-year-olds, I mean, you know, for me, because I want it simply, how you have an elected parliament, but it is a ceremonial vassal to the bureaucracy that has the real power.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, the Palace of Westminster, and I know that you guys in the States often watch our Prime Minister's questions, and you see this magnificent Gothic building, and just a couple of weeks ago the Queen arrived in her carriage to open Parliament, and it all looks magnificent, and the relationship between the monarch and the Parliament, it all goes back to the English Civil War, and it's something that has been the envy of the world in many ways. And yet the reality is the whole thing is now a total charade, because what we've got in Westminster is nothing more than a local government. I mean, think of it as a county type of government, because the big decisions that affect the British economy, the big decisions that affect our lives, employment legislation, environmental legislation, health and safety, I mean, you name it, the list goes on, it's as long as your arm. All of those things are now decided by the European Union. Those laws are made in secret by an unelected bureaucracy that is called the European Commission, and we, the voter, have no means of putting them in place. We have no means of removing them. And this coup d'etat, because that's what it is, this coup d'etat of British democracy has happened slowly, surreptitiously, over the course of the last 40 years by people whose intention it was to form a European government, a greater Europe, and it is a first step towards global government. And that's the warning, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very keen to come on to shows like yours to talk to predominantly an American audience. You know, don't think you're safe. Don't think your democracy is okay. There are bad people out there, and you mentioned yourself the Bilderberg Group. You know, these lunatics genuinely believe that they know what's best for us, genuinely believe in this concept of global government, and it will be a disaster. And that's why I gave up a career in business to fight against it.
Well, we commend you. We've got about 5 minutes left in this segment, and then 5 minutes after that before you've got to leave us. We want to be respectful of your time and also your strength recovering from the near-death experience you had in that airplane crash. And it's a blessing that you and the pilot survived. To get back to the collapse of Europe, I mean, it is collapsing, and the intel we just got from Jim Tucker, who's always spot on, I mean, you could set your watch and warrant by him, is that they are panicking. They're not even sure they can have world government now. They say their carbon tax is basically dead, and that and that many of them, for the first time in 60-plus years, did not attend. So it appears they are now being routed.
Yes, they are. I mean, you know, their dreams are falling to pieces, whether it's the single currency union, whether it's the whole global warming carbon tax scam, because scam is the only word that's appropriate for it. The whole thing is failing. It's losing public support massively by the day. It doesn't work in practical terms. But, you know, let's not be complacent about this. Just because their plans are failing doesn't mean they're going to stop. And my fear is that what they're going to do now is they're going to move down a route of suppressing free speech, of censuring, and maybe ultimately even imprisoning those who challenge them and fight them. And I mean, the last time, Alex, I came on with you, we talked about my discussion that I had with Herman Van Rompuy, an unelected, unknown Belgian who is now president of 500 million people. And because I told him a few home truths, because I tried to be like the boy in the Hans Christian Andersen tale, saying, look, the emperor's got no clothes, remember that I was not just castigated for that, I was actually fined 10 days' pay for having the temerity to point out.
You were censured.
I was censured and I was fined, absolutely, told this would never happen again. So what they'll do, as the edifice collapses, what they will do is they will become even less democratic and even more vicious against those that dare to speak out against them. You know, this battle is far from won just because their dreams are failing.
Absolutely. They're announcing in the U.S. that they now want to restrict the Internet. They want to restrict talk radio. It's now in the news. They're now proposing, and I see the same things in Europe. I mean, they can't beat us in the realm of ideas, so they're going to try to just shut us up and put us in the tower.
Absolutely. That is entirely right. And I have to say that looking at Obama from this side of the water, and I've felt this ever since he was elected, I really genuinely think that you have got a very dangerous president indeed.
Oh, I agree. He has got a cult following, though he's only got a 40% approval rating now. That group is getting more. It's almost like as Germany was collapsing and the most hardcore Nazis were supporting Hitler. They just didn't care. They were going to support him till the end.
Yeah. No, I'm constantly struck that there are these similarities between what's happening here and what is beginning to happen in America. And people have got to start waking up.